everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, here today to talk to you about A Mother's Curse from the Copenhagen-based band Strychnos. This one coming off of Dark Descent Records. Now, A Mother's Curse is a sinister, exceptionally wretched blackened death metal album. And while this is technically the debut studio album from Strychnos, you can hardly describe Strychnos as being a new band, as Strychnos has released a handful of demos and some EPs dating back to the band's inception in 1998, which is pretty wild to me. But this album is out now, and it starts off with these bludgeoning, slow-burning riffs on the first track, Trummer. The vocals from Martin Anderson are guttural, and they're vicious, and they're just very well performed. The track is kind of structured around these very dense and primordial grooves. The drums here sound really good, and a lot of it is based on the variety that the drums showcase. It switches between these very spacious grooves while also coming into these very pummeling fills. And while this track leans into brutality and groove, and it's very about the riffs, Strychnos does a really good job of creating some very claustrophobic atmosphere for the listener. On the next track, Blessed Be the Bastard Rain, you get these very classic sounding, very chunky death metal inspired riffs. And I love some of the interjections that come from the vocalist. They're very memorable and really stick, and kind of demonstrates a real knack for songwriting here. There's also this very barbaric closing section with these monstrous riffs and considerably violent drum performances. On the title track, the riffs show a bit, and emphasis, I mean a bit of melodicism, while remaining unapologetically punishing. The bass just kind of rips here. It just adds so much weight to all of the instrumentals, and the solo also really rules here. It's not too flashy while still showcasing some virtuosity, and it's just really fun to listen to. There's a couple moments with the vocals where it sounds like Anderson is giving like a war speech. They're very impassioned while being backed with just a ton of aggression. And the track even ends with these clean harmonies that it creates this like really epic moment, especially as they are paired with the growled refrain that just sort of stays until the end of the track. On Horror, Sacred, Torture, Divine, you get these very spooky spoken word passages that are featured that add some theatrics to the track, and this song definitely leans more into their black metal influences, leaning into the blackened side of blackened death metal. And a lot of that is thanks to these very ceremonious tremolos. And the band showcases a technique that's prominently used on this track and really a lot of other tracks on this album that I think is really sweet and cool. It's like the instruments will sometimes give space to the guitar for like a measure or two to introduce a riff or a groove, and then that riff is responded to by the drums and bass, and it lends to these very sharp dynamic shifts, and it creates these really cool and interesting interactions that demand my attention at multiple occasions on this track and on this album. Regiments of the Betrayed starts with this very foggy, spacious, sort of ritual-esque section, kind of built around these very dissonant arpeggios. The vocals don't come in until about 2.5 minutes in, when they're met with these very nasty guitar chugs, and the drums here are laser focused, and they sound like they are doing more than they actually are. If you listen closely, it's not that complex, and to sound that big with so little is not an easy thing to do. The drummer really utilizes a lot of dynamic shifts here, and it's just very musical, and it's really well done and well performed. Negra is probably the most vast and hollow track here. With you get these very big doomy riffs that are given a lot of room to breathe, but with that there is a lot of subtle detail and nuance from some other instruments and the guitars too, that fill the gaps here in very satisfying ways. Blind Eye Epiphany. The leads here are phenomenal, and which I've talked about a guitar solo on a previous track and the guitar leads, and I'll say it again, they're not overly flashy or overly technical, but they are created with a lot of attention to composition, and there's some cool uses of melody here, and it just seems like there's a real sense of direction to the leads, and they're really well mapped out and really add some life to this track. This album is about the riffs, and there is no shortage of riffs on this album, and with that they are very inventive, and the way the riffs are placed and structured and kind of built on each other, there's a real trajectory, and they're weaved together with a real sense of purpose. This album is brutal, it's gruesome, it's wicked. It's really all the qualities you would want in an album listed as blackened death metal. There's no real low moments on this, just a bunch of great tracks with some really terrifying vocal performances to take them to the next level. So I would really recommend giving this record a go. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed this review and would be so kind to hit the like button, it really helps kind of get this video out there. It would be very, very appreciated. If also you want to be notified of when more reviews will come, and you would also be so kind to subscribe, I would super appreciate that. If you've listened to this record or have any thoughts whatsoever, please leave them in the comments. I love reading those. I have a Twitter which you can follow. The link to that is in the bio of this YouTube channel. Keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh. Signing off.